It's weird. Were you thinking, because the first gigs that you did was teaching FTX, which is like our field training exercise, which is, JP and I have talked about this where I'm like, hey, JP, people don't need to really like know how to clear a room.
Yeah.
It's funny. Almost the human instincts that you have of how you would clear a room are good enough to do the FTXs. Sure. It's not about teaching people how to, the tactics of combat. It's about teaching them leadership. But it's funny, like even the plans they come up with, like we give them a target, their plans are like perfectly fine. They're perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not that great. Sometimes they make mistakes, but a lot of times it's like, you know what? That would work. That would work on this target for real. And these are people that are civilians, because let's face it, hitting a target of bad guys, it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science to figure out what you're going to do. And we give them enough basics that they can figure it out. But for me, the leadership laboratory that we got to work in when we were actually in and actually at Trade It and actually seeing platoons go through, that is such a powerful thing, because, man, when you are in those situations, you feel it. And when you think, oh, I'm good at detaching, and then you go on a run where you're freaking yelling and screaming, and and you say, oh, how was that detachment on the last run? As you were yelling and screaming at everybody and shooting your weapon a bunch and no one took charge of anything. So obvious when you actually experience it, and you learn that lesson so much more thoroughly when you actually experience it. It's freaking awesome to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had messages like on Instagram or LinkedIn where people have gone through our training. It's like, hey, I had this situation at work and I thought about that time where you took the gun away from me and told me to lead. Because when they're not detached and they're just getting after it with their gun, but they're actually in charge, like every now and then I'll take their gun away. And I'm like, hey, lead. Now you can lead because you don't have the gun. And so, they'll write back like, I remember the time you did this to me or you said this to me. And I say that at the FTXs. I'm like, hey, going through that pain actually solidifies that lesson way more. It's like Bruce Lee says, the pain will leave you when it's done teaching you. It's one of my favorite quotes. And I tell people that too, like in my brief in the morning, I'm like, hey, we're not here to teach you leadership. I mean, we're not here to teach you tactics. We're here to teach you leadership. And in the absence of knowledge, because you don't have any, knowledge doing this, what do you have to lean back on? Your leadership, which is simply you trying to influence another 25 people towards a common goal. So you're going to have to use all those tools that we've, talked about. Mm-hmm. And the groups that do the best are the ones that are able to apply it immediately. Like they make that connection. And the ones that struggle are the ones that can't seem to do that.